nothing. They have organized themselves. They have taken over 90% of this country. And today you, the government in power backed by America with all the Western powers, you have now come out to fight.
Oh,
how could you imagine yourself now being asked in other people that have legitimacy of 90% of citizenry in their support, that you cannot abdicate yourself from that country and allow the Islamic court to rule?
Right.
You should realize that religion Islam is a way of life. These people, 90% of them are Muslims, and they want to be governed by Islamic tenets and rules and injunctions.
Jawid, we're going to put this question to the Foreign Minister. We're going to put this question to the Foreign Minister after a short break, so stay tuned, and we'll get back to you in just a moment. Mr. Hora, stand by as well. We're going to take a short break here. There's more discussion when we come back. Thank you.
Definitely I will.
Yeah.
I will, definitely.
Deal that has to be struck in order to avoid a war.
Sorry, Dr. Morrison. Yeah, let's just connect, see if we can get Mogadishu. Mr. Ghalib, it's Riz Khan. Can you hear me, sir?
Okay.
Mr. Ghalib, it's Riz Khan. Can you hear me okay? Mr. Jama Muhammad Ghalib, it's Riz Khan. Can you hear me, sir? Yeah, that's strange. Mr. Ghalib, it's Riz Khan. Come back. Sorry, Dr. Morrison, you were saying on the deal that needs to be done.
The transitional federal government is really sort of squeezed between these two main contenders, which is the Ethiopian government, which has really serious security concerns, and the ICU, which is in an expansionary mode and doesn't want to get smashed up.
What I'll do is I'll throw that to you. We'll get into it as maybe as another question. It'll be to Dr. Morrison, I think. I can see if I can get to Mr. Jama Muhammad Ghalib. Can you hear me, sir?
30 seconds.
Okay. I'm sorry, we've got 4 people talking to me at once. It's like audio's got to take the mic down when I'm guys.
15. Stand by, please.
Welcome back. We're discussing the latest developments in war-torn Somalia with my guests in Nairobi, Somalia's Foreign Minister Ismail Mahmoud Hura, and in Washington we have Abdul Karim Jama, a Somali-American political activist, plus Dr. Stephen Morrison, Director of the Africa Program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies here in DC. And actually, a question we had just before the break was from Nigeria, and I want to get to Dr. Stephen Morrison for a comment on this. The issue, of course, is that what Jawid was saying from Nigeria is that there is a legitimacy in the Islamic courts by virtue of the fact they seem to have some support. But you feel there's a more important focus in this issue, and let me get that from you.
Well, the first question you raise about the courts. The courts are in an expansionary mode, and they do have broad popular legitimacy, and they've surprised us with the speed, the rapidity, and the way in which they've consolidated their support. The TFG, the problem that it faces is it controls very little territory. It does have some clan-based support from the Darat clan. It has no capacity. It's wholly reliant upon the Ethiopians for its survival. And the Ethiopians, in terms of the play within Somalia, the image that they are just a proxy for the Ethiopians plays very negatively within the Somali population. The bigger issue in terms of averting war between that would be terribly destructive is really what is the deal to be cut between the Ethiopian government and the ICU. And that is the central subject now in the EU-led negotiations, the back and forth between Mogadishu and Baidoa. The Ethiopians look across the border and they see the possibility of a radical Islamist regime exporting violence into their territory and promoting potentially a trans-Somali agenda, and they want to be assured that neither of those things will happen. They see the Eritreans with an estimated 2,000 trainers on the ground. They see their proxy war with Eritrea getting transported. They see the Oromo Liberation Front and the Ogaden National Liberation Front active coming across the border. They need assurances that those exports will cease. The ICU needs assurances that they will be respected as a legitimate Islamist government with some legitimacy and some coherence, and not be constantly under threat. Those are and there is a deal to be struck there, I believe, to avoid war.
Okay, let me get to Abdul Karim Jama and ask then, first of all, how warranted are those fears Dr. Morrison is referring to? And secondly, what chance does the Islamic Court, or what chance does the Islamic Court of having legitimacy based on this?
Indeed, the Islamic courts have broad legitimacy, like Dr. Morrison mentioned, and even though I don't think it's 90% like the caller mentioned, but many places have welcomed them without firing a shot, contrary to, with all due respect to what the foreign minister said.
Why?
Because there haven't been, to the best of my knowledge from what I read and listened to, cases where they went to new towns and cities and captured them by force. That's just not true. People welcomed them in many cases. There was hunger for order, just like in Mogadishu. You couldn't cross the streets a few months back, where now people travel miles and miles without having any difficulty. The issue that many times is raised in both in print and radio or television is that there is a fear of Islamic radicalism in Somalia and with the courts. And as legitimate as that concern may be, it has to be addressed really properly through them. Now, there is a way to get to that, I fear, which is to attack and radicalize will only push these people if they had some elements of that effect. That will strengthen that side. So I think negotiation, like Dr. Mansa said, is the way out, and I think a deal is to be had. The transitional federal government, by bringing Ethiopia into the picture, is not going to win hearts and minds, like the good doctor said, and is going to lose more legitimacy. We tried this in Iraq. In Iraq, we went with over 100,000 soldiers, and we can't keep up, pacify this country and impose the rule that we wanted from Washington. So negotiation is the way out, and I don't think we're going to put that much resources in Somalia as we have tried in Iraq. So we have to go to Khartoum and we have to negotiate.
Well, on the show, we try and get the viewers to get their questions in, so we've got another one on the line from Washington, actually. Yassine, your question, please.
Yes, my question is, the Somali people have been through a lot over the past couple of decades, and may Allah help them. But what is the benefit, and I hate to be repetitive in terms of the question, but what is the benefit of bringing in a third party, Ethiopia or Eritrea or anyone for that matter, when to escalate the violence which they are trying to escape? And what's happening is they don't have time to invade other countries. Somalia doesn't. They have a lot of work to do within the country and unifying the country. So why would the other government, the one that's not the ICU but the other party?
Well, let me get this across to first Ismail Mahmoud Hurra, who's the foreign minister of the transitional Somali government. Mr. Hurra, what is your answer to that? Is there no way to work without Ethiopia? I mean, if Ethiopia's presence is causing a certain amount of concern, is there no way for you to work without Ethiopia's intervention?
I think there is a lot of exaggerations about the Ethiopian role there. Ethiopia is definitely concerned about the attitude of the Islamist movement in Somalia, but the fact that the Islamic courts have been moving from place to place without any resistance to them was not from lack of resistance, but from the fact that the transitional federal government wanted the Somali people, as well as the international community, to see the real nature of this movement. Now that the transitional federal government has explained adequately to the rest of the world what these people are attempting to do in Somalia, which is bringing havoc, not stability and peace, and that the transitional federal government is now beginning to resist this kind of expansion and to, in fact, turn the tide back to the Islamic cause.
Sir, thank you.
I am sure the fact that a lot of people think that the Islamists
Yes, sir, thank you. I'm going to just get a response here from Dr.
Yes.
Stephen Morrison, because I want to ask, I want you to respond. I know you were listening with some concern to what the Minister had to say. So let's get your response to the claims that the Minister has made.
Well, first of all, let's remind ourselves. The Islamist courts were able to make the very rapid advances that they achieved to a large degree because of popular disgust with the power and predatory behavior of the warlords. When they were able to rout the warlords and open up the internal transport, they reduced the cost of doing business by 50%. They eliminated all of these shakedowns and stops on the roads. The ports began to function again. It was strong backing of the business community within Somalia, and that's a very important factor in explaining the way in which they were welcomed and they've been able to consolidate their support. Second point is they are a very ambiguous and mixed movement, and there are within their ranks, particularly within the Shabab, there are jihadi elements that have committed some pretty awful acts and are a threat. But there are also other elements that are very reasonable, that are conciliatory, and that can be dealt with. The transitional federal government's dilemma right now is they're all hat and no cattle. I mean, they are sitting there in Baidoa, utterly dependent upon the backing of the Ethiopians. They have some clan-based support, but they are internally divided. They've lost a lot of their folks who have moved to the other side. And their ultimate fate, it really hangs in the balance there. And that is a reality that they have not been able to graduate from being a certain transitional set of institutions to having any capacity and broad acceptance.
Well, Dr. Morrison, I have to apologize. That's all we have time for. And Abdul Karim Jama, I'd love to get you back on as well so we can discuss this more. Ismail Mohammed Hure, thank you very much for joining us there from Nairobi. And I'm sorry we weren't able to get across to Jama Mohammed Ghalib. But after the break, we have a young British Muslim who made it to Guantanamo and back. Stay tuned. It's very hard with the delay to... kind of you. Well, we'll have a chance to chat again because, I mean, this story is not going away as we've established. So we'll have a chance to... And hopefully our...
well, it's disappointing because if you'd had that time in the ICU, it would have been very...
Well, he could hear us first, then he couldn't, and so that's really what we need.